Brilliant. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this Friday Mindfulness UK session as we start the September month after the summer, and maybe certainly looking at the weather outside as we head into slightly wetter and grayer autumn, which is all part of life and life's change. I thought today we might explore a topic which can be described as suchness, or the comparing mind. Kind of useful just to see sometimes, just beneath the thoughts that are arising, maybe some of these more subtle concepts that are driving those thoughts. And one of those is this tendency of our minds to want to compare things and rank them. So I thought we'd have a look at that. But in the normal way, before we do so, maybe we could just start with a landing practice, just so we can arrive fully, whatever our busy day or busy week has been. And then we'll go into that practice and then maybe finish with a group discussion. So I invite you all to participate in a kind of relaxed and mindful way. Maybe just take a moment to have a stretch or get yourself comfortable, settle down into whatever position is comfortable, whether it's sitting or lying or standing. And when you're ready, just maybe closing your eyes or lowering your gaze and just taking a few deep breaths just to maybe breathe in and breathe out any tension or busyness that's going on. If you want to have a stretch of your arms or your shoulders or your neck, then now's the time to do so. And then, kind of in your own time, just settling into this invitation of mindfulness, just to place your attention on the breath as it passes in and out of your body. Just following each breath as it arises, maybe following its path through the tip of your nose, down your throat, into your chest and lungs, and then back out. And just settling into it because it's this wonderful anchor to the present moment, to what's actually happening right now. And some of you may prefer to just focus on the body rather than the breath. If the breath isn't comfortable for you, it's absolutely fine. And if that's the case, you could maybe bring your attention just to maybe the feeling of your body on the chair, on the floor, the kind of solidity and the support that you've been given. Or if you prefer, you could just slowly and gently scan up and down your body. And for those who prefer the breath, then just following the arising and the passing of each breath. And just a reminder that practice of mindfulness is just about being consciously aware of what's actually happening in the present moment in a non-judging way. We're not thinking of the future. We're not reliving or reminiscing about the past. And we're also not wishing the present was any different from what it is. Just being present and noticing what actually is arising and allowing that to be. Whether that's stressed or peaceful, whether you're busy and tense or relaxed and calm, whatever it is, that's fine. Just allowing it to be, just being there with it. And we use the breath or the body as an anchor to do this. So often we can get carried away with our thoughts and swept away to where we think we might like to be, or thinking of things that have happened or might happen, or mentally discussing things, trying to rationalize them. Then mindfulness is really an invitation just to gently let go of that by bringing the attention back to the anchor, by seeing what happens actually when we just sit, stand, or lie with what's actually arising. And very often this can be extremely liberating and really return us to a place of calm, remove a lot of the pressure that our minds can create. And if we do notice that we've been pulled away into thoughts or feelings, just giving a little inner smile as we notice that, then just gently and without any judgment, just bringing our attention back to the anchor. Remembering that this returning to the here and now, this waking up out of thoughts and feelings, this is the practice. To just keep coming back to the present and allowing it to be. If there are a lot of thoughts or feelings arising, it can often be helpful just to name them generically. Maybe planning mind, and then to bring the attention back. This allows a degree of separation from whatever the individual thoughts are, and just puts them into the category of one of a number of things that are happening in the present moment. There's some thoughts arising, there's our breath arising and passing, there may be some noises arising and passing. And with mindfulness, we're just looking to sit and notice as all these things unfold, but not to get involved or distracted by any of them. Just see what happens next if we just sit with them. Noticing the arising and noticing the passing. And as we settle, maybe also noticing that little place of stillness between each breath arising and passing. And as we move to wrap up this landing practice, just noticing if those words trigger any thoughts or anticipation in the mind. And if they do, just using that as an opportunity to see how the mind works. There's a stimulus and it produces thoughts. But we can also, rather than engage with those thoughts, we can just see those thoughts arising and choose, on this occasion, to say we prefer just to keep our attention on the breath. I'm doing this for maybe 3 more breaths. And then in your own time, gently open your eyes, maybe have a stretch or a drink. And just while you do, I'd like to read this story from the writer Gil Fronsdale, from his book called The Monastery Within, Tales from the Buddhist Path. Giving instruction for meditation, the abbess once held up a flower in her right hand. "Look at this flower," she said. "Notice its suchness, how it appears in and of itself." Continuing to hold up the rose in her right hand, with her left hand she held up a little dandelion. Now we can say something about the rose we couldn't say before. Now we can say that the rose is the large flower compared to the dandelion, which is the small flower. Putting down the dandelion, the abbess picked up a large sunflower. While nothing has changed for the rose itself, we can now say that the rose is the small flower compared to the sunflower. Large and small are not inherent in the rose. Large and small reside on the comparison with other flowers, and freed from comparison, a flower is just itself. So gaze directly at your own suchness. Much of the suffering you will have in life will arise from comparative thinking. In meditation, don't compare yourself with anything. There is no need to compare yourself to others, to ideals, to past experiences, or to future imaginings. Residing in suchness, you will find the path to peace. So I thought maybe we could take a little moment to explore this in a practice that I guess really involves settling back into the current moment and just softening to it, but then noticing what happens if we pose certain questions, noticing what arises in our mind, but if we can, also seeking to notice as well the fact that our breath or our body is still there, and that these thoughts are just one of a number of things happening. And this can really help us to not get swept away in whatever arises, but just to notice it, notice what may happen when these comparisons happen. So that's the kind of practice we'll try to settle, see what arises when certain questions are asked, but see if we can maybe have kind of 25% of your attention also on your breath or your body, whichever's more comfortable to you. And at various points, we'll come back fully to that just to make sure we're grounded. And then we'll have a discussion at the end about what arises, and that can be the opportunity if any kind of discussion about this is needed. Cool. So if you're ready, maybe just settling back into that comfortable position. And again, you can close your eyes or lower your gaze, whatever you prefer. You might take a moment just to stretch a little to release any tension in the body, and then just relax and let go and bring your attention to your preferred anchor, whether that's the breath or the body. So just noticing how the breath arises and passes, or any body sensations arise and pass. And be aware that this place, this peaceful place, is always here. So if at any point in the session you feel a bit overwhelmed by any thoughts or emotions, or indeed in the coming week, just remembering that placing your attention back on the anchor, you can reground, you can rebalance, and you can settle. And you can stay there as long as you need. So now I invite you just to bring to mind this story of the rose, and just to see if you can notice what arises in your mind when you think of it. See if you can notice the thoughts and feelings arising, and maybe name them, but keep part of your attention on your breath or your body. Try not to get engaged in discussing or rationalizing the thoughts or feelings that arise, just noticing them. And an invitation to notice what arises when you ask internally, when do I compare the most? And who are the roses that I'm comparing against? And what does it feel like in my body, in my mind, when I am in a comparing mood? I'm comparing things. And what might it be like to feel? How would I feel if actually I could just accept each thing, each person as it is? And then let's circle back to the breath or the body. Just reground after asking these thoughts. Just putting all of our attention now back on the breath or the body. Just being in the present moment. Just watching each breath arise and pass. And now, just quietly asking internally, when am I the rose? When do I feel like I'm being compared to others? And who do I feel that I'm being compared against? And what does it feel like in my body and my mind when I'm being compared? And what would it feel like to be completely accepted as I am? And now we're going to drop back to the breath or the body. And again, just reground as our minds have been stimulated by these questions. Now we're just going to allow those thoughts to pass. Just place our attention fully back on our breath, with each breath arising and passing, or our body with sensations arising and passing. And as we settle back into the current moment, just an invitation to remember that there's nothing wrong with the comparative mind. We're not saying this shouldn't be happening. It's just another feature of the mind. The mind has stimulus and produces thoughts. And the mind also has this comparing ability, which in turn generates thoughts. What we're looking to do is just to notice that this is actually what's happening. Because then the thoughts that arise subsequently can be seen to be just thoughts rather than anything more real. In the same way that pressure systems create weather and create clouds in the sky, we wouldn't say that the pressure systems are wrong or that the clouds are wrong. But as soon as we know that it's just a pressure system that's creating the clouds, we realize the cloud is just a temporary phenomenon. It's here today but gone tomorrow. We don't attribute anything more to it than that. And the invitation with this kind of reflection on suchness and the comparing mind is just to notice that it's exactly the same. So when comparing happens, actually it's just an illusion. The rose is just the rose. People are just the people. So maybe we don't need to get so caught up in either the feeling of comparing or the feeling of being compared. We can just notice them like clouds in the sky, but allow them to pass like clouds. And as ever, one of the most helpful ways of doing this is just to notice the thought or feeling or the comparing mind, see it arise, and just name it. We'll bring our focus back to the breath or the body. And so we'll finish by just settling there for a few moments more. And then in your own time, I invite you just to draw the practice to a close and gently open your eyes. We'll come back together. And while we do, maybe I could just read this description of mindfulness by James Barrows. Mindfulness is simply being aware of what's happening right now, without wishing it were different. Enjoying the pleasant, without holding on when it changes, which it will. And being with the unpleasant, without fearing that it will always be this way, which it won't. Okay, so maybe I could just pause the recording and then we'll go into some group discussion.